This is it. This is the first plug-in hybrid pickup in America. It's the 2026 Ram 1500 Ramcharger, and it's going to be on sale likely around October 2025. I just got out of a presentation where we got a ton of detailed information on the Ram 1500 Ramcharger's hybrid system and exactly what's going on under the hood. So let's take a deep dive into that now. First things first, is it a plug-in hybrid or is it an extended range EV? The honest answer is that it's both. According to the EPA, this will be a plug-in hybrid, and Ram even says it has a hybrid system under the hood, but they're also calling it an extended range EV. The best way to think of this is maybe a Venn diagram where all extended range EVs are plug-in hybrids, but not all plug-in hybrids are extended range EVs. It's really just a subset, and honestly, it doesn't matter at all. What's more critical is knowing how the hybrid system works and whether the way that it works is right for you. So without further ado, let's take a deep dive into this plug-in hybrid system. The heart of this system is a 91.8 kilowatt hour NMC battery pack. It uses the first half of the battery tray that will be theoretically used in the upcoming full electric Ram pickup truck. The other half is used for the gas tank and some emission systems in the back. What's interesting about this battery is not the battery itself, but how the system is using the battery, because it is different than other EVs and other plug-in hybrids on sale in North America. When you're in EV mode, and that disclaimer is important, when you're in EV mode, it's going to use 69.7 kilowatt hours of the battery pack to give you 145 miles of electric range and about 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour. So kind of similar to other electric trucks out there. You might be thinking to yourself, why is so much of the battery not used? Well, it is used, but there's some asterisks here. The top 3% of the battery pack is reserved for battery system life. So you never want to completely charge a lithium-ion battery because that will reduce its lifetime. That's why we have that buffer at the top. The bottom nearly 17% of the battery, that is a little bit different because a large portion of that likely is usable, but Ram is not giving us exact details on how much of that 17% you will actually ever use. Here's what's going on. Some portion of that bottom 17% is likely reserved for battery lifetime as well. So you never want to completely discharge a lithium-ion battery, just like you never want to fully charge it either. The rest of it, though, probably somewhere between 9 and 10 kilowatt hours, perhaps even more, is reserved for system performance. Because Ram says they want this vehicle to behave just like it does when it's full, when it has a stated 0% state of charge. And that's because when you're at stated 0% state of charge, it's not really at zero, and you can still use that lower portion of the battery pack. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible for this vehicle to be delivering you the total of 647 horsepower that they're claiming, or 610 pound-feet of torque. Importantly, they're saying that when it's in hybrid operation, you will still get 4.5 seconds 0 to 60, you can still tow 14,000 pounds, and you can still haul 2,645 pounds. And it will still meet all the requirements for the SAE J2807 test, also known as the Davis Dam test, where you're climbing up a really steep grade over 11 miles in 100-degree weather. It will still do that in hybrid operation. And that's only possible if they're reserving that lower approximately 17% of the battery. This helps explain why initially we thought that the efficiency was going to be truly atrocious in electric mode, because 91 kilowatt hours of battery, 145 miles of range, that doesn't look so good. But when you consider that it's actually under 70 kilowatt hours of usable capacity, then you end up there around 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour. So pretty similar to something like the Lightning. Now, the battery pack itself is an approximately 350 volt pack, and that is important. The voltage is on the low side, and that's likely why you're probably never going to want to DC fast charge it, even though it is DC fast charge capable. One of the specs they gave us was you can go 20% to 80% in 45 minutes. 10% to 80% is going to be about an hour, and if you want to go completely full, and again, we are talking only about that 70 kilowatt hour approximate portion of the battery, then it's going to take over an hour to charge that completely and regain 145 miles of driving range. If math isn't your strong suit, here's how that sorts out. A 45-minute DC fast charge session would regain only 87 miles of EPA range. You'd have to spend over an hour to get the full 145. But that's because you have another option available. You could go to the gas station and regain considerable range in about 5 minutes. specifically 545 miles of range thanks to the 27-gallon gas tank on board. Here's how that portion of the system works. The gas tank feeds a 3.6-liter Pentastar V6. It's basically the same V6 that we've seen in a ton of vehicles for a while, including certain versions of the Ram 1500 as well. Under this hood, it produces 271 horsepower, 226 pound-feet of torque, and it's mated only to a generator. The generator also acts as the starter, apparently, so it doesn't have a separate starter, and they've simplified the engine a bit. So there's no need for an EGR system. That's one of the reasons they said they did not use the 2-liter turbo, is that this one not only doesn't need the EGR, the 2-liter turbo apparently would, it doesn't need the turbo or the intercooler plumbing. It can run on 87 octane easily, rather than requiring higher octane like some of those higher compression turbos would, and it's rated for continuous operation as well. So they said the cooling profile, etc., it just worked out better to produce 271 horsepower from this naturally aspirated V6 engine. Now, the generator's rating, that is interesting. It's rated for 271 horsepower peak, 202 kilowatts or so. After that undisclosed period of time at peak output, it's going to drop down to 130 kilowatts continuous, about 174 horsepower. So there is going to be some point in time where you're towing a 14,000-pound trailer behind a 7,500-pound truck that's only making 170 horsepower. It's going to be pretty unlikely, but it could happen on, for instance, I-70 or I-80 in California or Colorado, where you're climbing up those really long, steep grades. And that's why Ram has another mode that's worth mentioning, the tow mode. That will reserve an additional 24 kilowatt hours of the battery pack. So it's going to stop at 35% indicated state of charge, then turn on the engine. And it's going to change the engine power delivery profile to try and keep that battery state of charge higher. So that way you can climb those long divides without worrying about running out of power. And again, if you did run out of power, you could just stop and charge the battery a bit and then take back off. But definitely a consideration to keep in mind. Also keep in mind that when operating as a hybrid, this is not going to be as efficient as something like an F-150 hybrid. This is EPA rated for 20 miles per gallon combined, and we don't know what the city and highway portion of that 20 mpg number is. If I had to guess, it's probably higher in the city, probably lower on the highway. In all likelihood, an F-150 hybrid is going to be about 15% more efficient on average, probably about 20% more efficient on average on the highway than the Ramcharger, just due to the design of this hybrid system. There is no mechanical connection between the V6 and the front wheels. It is a serial hybrid only. There is no parallel hybrid mode at all at any speed. Let's talk about the motors next, because this is how power actually gets to the ground. Intriguingly, we have very similar motors, but completely different motor units, front and rear. Both are permanent magnet motors, but their power outputs are different, their differentials are different as well. Up front, we get 250 kilowatts peak, 186 kilowatts continuous. That's about 335 horsepower or so peak, 249 horsepower continuous. In the back, the rear motor is rated a little bit lower peak, 248 kilowatts, but notably lower continuous, 149 kilowatts. For those interested in translations, that's around 200 horsepower in the rear. The differentials are also different. The final drive ratio uses a coaxial arrangement up front, an offset arrangement in the back, and the rear motor can have an e-locker, which is a handy feature. No e-locker available up front, but you can at least get that feature in the rear. The front also has an axle disconnect feature. So you might be thinking to yourself, maybe Ram is using that front electric motor when you're driving in steady state highway operation because it's the more powerful motor with the higher continuous output. No, they're actually using the rear motor in continuous highway operation, and they will disconnect the motor up front for greater efficiency. But if you want flat out all the power available, then it's going to use the front motor. It's actually a little bit more up front, and in those longer run uphill drives, it's actually going to be biasing that power perhaps a little bit more to the front because it's the one with the higher continuous rating. Quite similar to the F-150 Lightning, Ram designed a unique frame for the Ramcharger to sit under basically the same body and cab. There are some minor body changes for the Ramcharger, but generally speaking, this shares a great deal with the regular Ram 1500. Again, very much like the F-150 lineup. And we have the same benefits. So if you have any sort of cargo accessory, any bed accessory that you want to put on your Ramcharger, if it fits on a regular Ram 1500, it will fit on a Ramcharger. And that's different in GM's electric trucks because their beds are very different than the gasoline trucks. Now, Ram did not comment on mounting points for things like rock rails or side steps or things like that, but I suspect some of them may fit on the Ramcharger and some of them may have to be redesigned for the Ramcharger because the frame is 8 inches wider. So if it bolts to the frame of a regular Ram 1500, it's probably not going to work on the Ramcharger. But if it bolts to the body on a regular Ram 1500, then it's probably going to be just fine because those mounting points are more or less similar. The reason for the wider frame is simple. It accommodates the battery pack, it accommodates the gas tank as well, jammed there between the axles. The new frame was also designed to accommodate a 4-corner independent suspension that we're going to find on all Ramcharger models, and for the moment, also an air suspension on all Ram models. This is not only going to help compensate for the 7,500 pounds of curb weight, which is heavier than a Lightning, depending on the trim, maybe somewhere between 700 and 500 pounds heavier, and of course about 1,000 pounds lighter than GM's trucks. That's an important consideration as well. But it's going to give us the adaptive height capability we find in other Ram trucks also. The air suspension is going to go down to about 8.5 inches, and it's going to go up to 9 inches in its normal height mode. It's probably also going to have an off-road mode, although they weren't too clear on that just yet. Bet on somewhere around 10 inches of ground clearance in that mode. So what do you think? And importantly, how much do you think Ram is going to charge for the Ramcharger? There have been some estimates out there that it might start around $60,000. I have a suspicion that might be a tiny bit optimistic, but hey, Ram could surprise me. And I would be willing to bet that the very loaded models are going to go well up to the $100,000 mark because this is going to be the highest performing Ram truck available in the United States. And that is what is interesting about the Ramcharger. They didn't just make this a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid to compete with the F-150 hybrid. Yes, it does have a lot of power offloading capability. It can do vehicle to home. It can do vehicle to load via the J1772 connector or the connectors in the bed, but it also has high performance, high towing capability. It's going to be the best towing truck in this segment, it looks like, at 14,000 pounds of towing capability and the highest payload rating in the Ram 1500 lineup. Ram has been kind of known for having relatively low payload capacities in their Ram 1500 for a while. Many models go down to about 900 pounds or 1,000 pounds or so. This is going to go up to 2,600 pounds, so really quite shocking on that payload capability. Ram is saying that there is not going to be a fifth wheel or a gooseneck option from the factory, but I was intrigued that they were a little cagey and basically said, well, the aftermarket's going to do what the aftermarket's going to do. So they didn't say, don't stick a gooseneck on it, don't stick a fifth wheel adapter on it. I don't know if I would, mind you, because of the independent suspension in the rear, but they were also pretty bold in saying this has the highest axle rating in the Ram 1500 lineup and the highest payload rating in the Ram 1500 lineup as well. Again, 2,600 pounds, and a lot of that payload is designed to be located right there in the bed. Remember, payload includes all passengers and cargo, so 5 people inside plus whatever is in the bed, and tongue weight from your trailer. That is all payload. But it does kind of bode well for, towing performance, maybe fifth wheel capacity, aftermarket, etc. That remains to be seen. This is not a representation at any stretch that you should do that. But, if you buy a Ramcharger, and you do, then reach out to us because I want to hear about it. I want to know how well that works. Does it work? I'm just so intrigued by the possibility there. And also the possibility of, if this works out for Ram, are they going to try something like this with their bigger trucks and maybe a turbo diesel plug-in hybrid? That could be kind of interesting. At any rate, let me know what you think about that down there, and let me know what you suspect the pricing will be like on the Ramcharger when it does hit the dealers. It's going to hit dealers probably sometime around October. All Ram would say was second half of the year. I suspect they're saying that because it's not going to be third quarter, but it might be beginning of fourth quarter, end of third quarter, and they're trying to hedge their bet there a little bit. So let me know what you think about all that down there, and stay tuned because hopefully we'll be driving it around that same time. See all of you later.